Karma dictates your birth, karma dictates your death. Karma influences your action, karma is the consequence of your action. We understand karma very complicatedly, but karma is very simple. Namaskar, they call me Vijay Sridhara, and I'm once again back on my podcast Life Insights. In this episode, I'm going to talk about karma, which we made very complicated to understand, and to our convenience, we twist it the way we want. But karma is very simple to understand. If we understand it, we will do the right things in life. Suppose you are into glass tumbler manufacturing business. You make variety of glasses, water glasses, tea glasses, wine glasses of different colors, different designs. And each of these sets, you will pack them into different cardboard boxes and seal it and send them for retail businesses. We also need to understand when you melt the glass again to remanufacture the glasses, you would want to remove all the impurities, you would want to remove all the colors, you would want to remove all the designs from it. So when the glass is molten back, you want to make it crystal clear, and then you would want to add additional colors. So you will neutralize everything once you want to bring it back into the original state, molten state. Now let's understand karma from this perspective. Karma, from its very primitive meaning or definition, is action. When you do a certain action, for example, I want to steal something from somebody. I have stolen it. I could do it very blatantly and get caught. I could do it very tactfully and not get caught. I could get the benefit of stealing. So that is the immediate consequence, being there or not. So when I do an action, there could be an immediate consequence or may not be an immediate consequence, depending on how tactfully I did or how much it affects other people very blatantly or other life, for example. So any action could have an immediate consequence or may not have an immediate consequence. Now, if I am successful in stealing, there forms a tendency in me to steal more. Or if I am caught in stealing, I could resolve not to steal again in my life, or I could become angry, I could become resentful. All of these things happen. These are the consequence of my first action, right? So there is a tendency that develops in me, mostly in the same direction as my initial action, or sometimes in the exact opposite direction. It is possible. So this tendency develops in me. That is the second consequence of any action. Now this second consequence of forming a tendency gets mixed up with many other tendency, and it forms an amalgam, and it tries to manifest in a different format in the society or within myself. So this deepening of tendency tries to push me into a situation where this tendency could be manifested in a different format. Now when and where, nobody knows. It could be in this lifetime or in the next lifetime. That's why you see people who have cheated you, who have done atrocities to mankind, have easily escaped this life. They have spent their life very well. We kept wondering what happened to all those sins that they have performed. We need to understand that any action, either sin or good, it will have a repercussion. The repercussion not in terms of punishment, but in terms of a consequence. An action creates an immediate consequence or it may not. But an action definitely creates a tendency in you. This tendency will push you into a certain situation to manifest itself into action. There you can have a consequence. That consequence again will create a tendency in you. Either it will deepen your tendency or it will create a new tendency in you. So this is how the vicious cycle of action will happen within us. And this entire cycle is called karma. The behavior of us, because of the tendencies we have, is called buddhi karmanusar, which means our mind, our intelligence works because of the tendencies that we carry. The foundation of these tendencies are nothing but our likes and dislikes. When we let go of these likes and dislikes, automatically karma stops forming tendencies within us. So when we let go of likes and dislikes, how can we even perform action? We have to perform action based on the appropriateness of the situation, not because of likes and dislikes. That is when karma stops creating tendencies in us. That means that is when you stop applying colors to your tumblers. That is when the tumblers are ready to be molten or dissolve. So, in that molten state, all these impurities have to be removed. But for karma to be dissolved, we have to remove the impurities or the colors from our life before it gets dissolved. Only then it will be ready to be dissolved. Till that point in time, this makes us go in circles. The karma creates an immediate consequence which is not deterministic, not certain, the first one. The second one is a tendency which is very certain but again not deterministic. We cannot determine what kind of tendency that you will form because of an action. The third is certain consequence and definitely not deterministic. There is certainty in the consequence in the third scenario because of the tendencies we have gotten, but we cannot determine what kind of situations we will get into because of the tendency and what kind of consequence will we face and what kind of new tendencies will form and when will this happen. So I reiterate, for any kind of action that we perform, there could be three consequences. The first one is not deterministic, not certain. Second one is very certain but not deterministic. The third one is not deterministic but certain. This is how the cycle of karma happens. Now we need to understand, if we are sensible enough, then we have to reduce our likes and dislikes and perform the right action, the appropriate action. We also need to understand when an action is reinforced with an emotion, when the action is reinforced with a volition, reinforced with intention, then the deepening of tendency is very strong. It deepens the tendency within a person. The immediate consequence could be strong. The tendency will be deepened very strongly, very deeply, and the subsequent consequence of that tendency could be even more stronger. So it is very important to have discretion, when to emote, when to have intention. So why am I saying this is, for example, a cop catches a thief. It is his duty to catch a thief. If he produces the thief in front of the court and the court gives him the punishment, there ends the matter. So that is one kind of karma, a little karma. Now, if the cop has lot of emotion to catch this thief, he has lot of anger towards this thief, then the karma of the cop is very deepening. This gives him that kind of tendency to be angry, to be resentful. And this tendency will push him into situations where he will have to face the consequence of such situation. So this is how karma works. The more intention, volition, and emotion that you carry along with karma, the more deepening the tendency will be, the more strong the subsequent consequence will be. Whether or not the immediate consequence is there will be subsequent consequences. So please understand, this is how simply we define karma, and the whole cycle itself is called karma. If we understand this, we will perform the right things in life and do not get attached to unnecessary things in life. A very brilliant and dynamic teenager came to me for an advice. While talking to him, a concept that surfaced: what is karma and how should he escape from it? I said, you are at a crossroads, for example. When you are at a crossroads and you know that one path leads into a jungle where there are a lot of wild animals, and the second path has a very pleasant trip, what would you choose? He very impulsively answered that he would choose the first one, where there is a lot of adventure. I said, are you sure? Then he thought for a moment and asked me again, what kind of wild animals am I talking about? I said, there are tigers, wolves, hyenas, and many others which we are unaware of. But definitely it's not going to be a pleasant trip. Then he thought for another moment and said he would choose the second path, where there is a pleasantness in the trip. Life offers us choices. When we make the choice, we should not be impulsively taking the choice, but we should make a judgment based on the consequences that it is going to bring to us. If we are ready for the consequences, we can make any choice. We should welcome those consequences with smile. If we are not ready and if we don't know what kind of consequences is it going to bring, then we should refrain from performing such actions. And thank you for listening to this podcast very patiently. This is Vijay Sridhara signing off.